Well, let's talk about the contract then. I mean, back in 1982, how long was a contract and what were the areas that you focused on in a contract?
The longest ever contract that we did was 64 pages. And that was one of Ayrton's contracts. I've come across another 64-page contract in recent years, but I sent it back, so I'm not reading it. But in those days, contracts tended to be long or longer. But the most important things, I mean, people actually think in Formula One that the most important thing in a contract is the money. It isn't. The most important thing in the contract is actually the exit clauses. It's what enables you to move a driver on if things don't work out.
So that might be performance related, it might be points related.
Or it could be technical, whether a team is having a factory engine or a customer engine. There are all sorts of things, but that's actually much more important because, as you well know, in this business, you're only ever going to win the Formula One World Championship in the best car. How many drivers have won the World Championship in not the best car, say, in the last 15 years? Probably Lewis, 2008, first championship. Was that the one that he won on the last corner in Brazil?
Yeah.
And I don't think he had the best car that year.
Yeah, it might have been the Ferrari, mightn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think if you think about it, to win the World Championship in Formula One, you've got to be in the best car to give you 90% of a chance to win the championship.
So the principles you were talking about a minute ago, the principles of management and trust and all those things, it must mean that you are more than just the legal eagle representing a driver. You must be the confidant. You must be almost a friend. Is that fair?
Well, that's when you come to the fact that it's respect, integrity, and trust. Those are the three elements that build any relationship in business, and that should always be the case. I suppose the reason I've been around for such a long time is probably because of those three things.
And you have to build up those three things before you then sign a contract with a driver, I'm guessing.
Well, over the years, mainly drivers have come to us by way of recommendation. We haven't really gone out looking for drivers. And I mean, I was asked this question actually because I did an interview a couple of weeks ago for a French magazine. And I was asked this question about Alain and Ayrton. And actually, believe it or not, Ayrton came to us recommended by Alain.
That's extraordinary that Alain, who was already being managed by you, should recommend his fiercest rival to you.
In those days, don't forget, he was at McLaren in 84 was the first year. But he won 2 championships in 85 and 86. And he was a double world champion. Senna never came to McLaren until 1988. And so I'd already worked with Alain for 3 years. Ayrton became a client in the spring of end of 85, actually. So at that stage, whether Alain saw Ayrton as a rival or not, I mean, you'd have to go forward 3 years till you get to 88, till they became teammates. And as you well know, in Formula One, your teammate is your biggest rival. The word teammate is a complete misnomer, in my opinion.
How did you even begin to look after those two guys at the same time? Must have been such a complex thing.
No, not at all. Because Alain had become a client at the end of 82. And I guess we must have done a pretty good job for him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have recommended us to Ayrton. I then met Ayrton and his father. And at that time, he had a manager called Armando Botelho. But they were looking for somebody to help them in Europe and with Formula One in particular. And then sadly, Armando, who was the business partner of Ayrton's father, died in 1986, cancer. So I was kind of left looking after Ayrton. But it worked well.